Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Matt, that's great. Also joining us, yet again, another one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Rakush. Hey, Rakush.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Cold as hell for a June summer day.
It weather-wise hasn't been great the last few weeks. I feel 3 weeks ago in particular, mid-May, that was perfect. I don't know, spring weather, just the right amount of warmth. Could go out with a thin sweater or even a t-shirt. Matt, I believe in our old men discussions a few weeks ago, we talked about that very week. And since then, just really cold, rainy, wet, for someone whose spirits were lifted with that sudden change in weather, for it to go back to pretty much early winter, late fall weather made me a sad boy. And Rakush, I know you're going out and about. How has the weather affected your day to day?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. So I started playing slow pitch, beer league softball a couple of weeks back, and it has been fun, but it has been a little bit chilly. So you kind of tense up a little bit more. You're not as warm as you'd like to be. You're not as limber. So yeah, there's definitely been a big impact there as well. But even a day like today, it's also partially I live in a condo building, and so they have centralized cooling for the hallways and stuff like that. But if they go super cold outside, then a lot of that cold air is also kind of blowing into your apartment through the door cracks and stuff. So there's been a big element of that as well. Outside, it's 16, 17, and the breeze is decent-ish. Slightly cool, but not cold. However, the apartment itself is cold as hell because they've also turned the heat off. So it's not I can just turn the heat on to 22, 23 internal temperature and be fine. So that's also been adding to it. So yeah, surprisingly cold getting into June.
It's rough out there where, boys, summer is in limited supply moving forward. We only have 3 months, and I want the most out of my feel-good weather. And today, walking our dog, not feeling it at all. But speaking about things that are cold, boys, I wanted to gather you here, not only for our weekly mistake check-ins, but I feel like I need to do this for the sake of my mental being. Boys, this is an intervention.
Oh no.
For myself.
Oh,
because
okay. Hey, for yourself, got it. I thought it was mad in anime.
No.
How am I the one getting called out for too much anime?
In terms of, I don't know, we all have let's be honest, this is the mistake zone. We all have our destructive behavior here. But I think me in particular, for the past few weeks, if you've been doing a mistake zone drinking game where you take a shot every time I talk about being priced out of a hobby or just basic cost of being alive, I apologize. But despite me talking the talk, I'm still someone that will walk the walk to the mall and line up early for a Pokemon card drop. And that's what I did this past Friday with the new release of the latest Pokemon TCG booster pack, or just set release in Destined Rivals, where this was yet another, I want to say, more towards the nostalgia bait, because this was the latest Team Rocket set in a good long while. And I woke up, went to the mall, was, I believe, 9th in line or so, and I waited the hour and a half, got my product, came home, and essentially, boys, I'm a bad partner because, people go out for their legit date nights. I'm buying a bunch of Pokemon cards for us to rip. And despite me saying, oh, I don't want to pay $99 for Silent Hill F, or I don't want to pay $99 for Stellar Blade, I still spent a pretty penny on Pokemon cards. And for the 21 packs that we ripped this week, this by far was the worst pulls we've ever done in a release drop.
Damn.
Where no secret illustration rares, no fun cards, just a bunch of normal rares, a few X cards, and maybe two full art cards for Pokemon I don't care for. And Matt, Rakush, I know I've told you about my Pokemon ripping escapades in the past, but this was the first time I've actually felt ashamed of dropping this much and seeing so little in return, where considering that over the past, I don't know, 4 sets, I've kind of tracked how much more GameStop or EB Games in Canada now is charging per release, and just seeing that number climb for me to pay the premium, not quite scalper, not quite hobby store premium, but still a higher GameStop EB Games premium, and walk away with nothing. Doesn't feel great, boys. Doesn't feel great. Where I believe in a month and a half, that's when the next set, which is essentially the next black and white set, comes out. Don't think I can do it, boys. Don't think I can do it. And I think... What's up?
I got a question, because it seems like these booster packs are coming out very frequently, but Pokemon's been around for like 30 years at this point. Like, how many actual booster packs are coming out with anything that's actually unique in it? Because I feel like at some point you got to be reusing Pokemon and like rehashing ideas, right?
So this is something I definitely noticed last release. I believe that was a Prismatic Evolutions, the Eevee set that just came out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might have been even Journey Together, one of the two, where I was ripping packs and then I noticed, hey, these are literally, maybe it was from Prismatic because that was technically supposed to be a smaller release compared to one of the major releases like Journey Together or Destined Rivals, where they were literally just reprinting the same cards from other sets and then pooling them into this one set. And of course, no one, let's be honest, boys, no one actually cares about your filler bulk cards. You're here for the hits. You're here for the pretty illustration rares, all the pretty Eevee cards, all the cool trainer cards. Maybe, or that's just me specifically, but I think in between just everyone saying how the hit rates are bad, the rising costs once again, and the fact that this did not make me feel good. Plus, there's the whole, I don't like playing the Pokemon Center game because I know you guys aren't being alerted when a new set drops on the official Pokemon Center site, but trying to navigate that site when there's a drop is one of the worst online shopping experiences you can have, just because that's being filled with scalpers, bots, and you're immediately thrown into queue. Matt, Rakush, the number of times where I'll get in after waiting an hour, add something to my cart, try to check out, something goes wrong, and then I'm thrown back in queue, doesn't feel great. So I think this is an intervention for myself, where as someone who does it to only collect cards, I think this was the last straw for me, where the amount I spent on the riffs, we could have just spent towards buying all the cool single cards during the next HobbyCon or that we'll go to. Or, fingers crossed if we ever have another trip to Japan, just like raiding the Japanese card selection, just because I, talk to any collector. I've had this conversation when I was waiting in line as well. Just when it comes to card quality as well, the Japanese cards, the card stock feels better. The print quality seems a lot better as well, where if I'm just going to collect for funny art because I'm not playing the game, I might as well just stick to buying the singles. And if my pulls were any indication, that's probably what I should do right now. But that was my Pokemon TCG intervention. Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you need to have an intervention on right now when it comes to destructive hobbies?
I think I need to stop buying promotional flavors of drink.
Matt, did you buy a new promotional flavor of drink this week?
Yeah, I did. Guys, have you heard of Pepsi Zesty Citrus? No, wait, hang on. Electric Zesty Citrus.
Oh, sorry. That's an important distinction.
It's electric Zesty Citrus. That's important.
Yeah.
Because, you guys, I think if this was just, Zesty Citrus, I wouldn't have been as surprised. Because the electric got me, you guys. Because, I don't know how you guys drink, like to drink your soda or colas or whatever. But I am the type that likes to, take some ice, put it in a glass, and then pour the drink into it.
I mean, that's just how you enjoy. That's how you relax, Matt.
And that's how I like to do it. And, it's very jarring when you pour pour something out and it doesn't look the way you expect it to. Because, the can itself is just a black can with kind of like the Pepsi logo and the name in kind of a neon style.
So that's like a Pepsi Max can. If I'm getting my Pepsi branding, correct.
Mm-hmm. And when I poured it out, it was like Gatorade blue.
Oh, I thought you were going to say this was a Pepsi Clear situation where this just looks like Sprite or 7-Up.
No, this is like fizzy blue Gatorade color. Honestly, the flavor is like pretty good. It's basically just like if you mix Pepsi and like Sprite or 7-Up. I can't remember which one is the Pepsi owned one.
7-Up.
Okay. But like, just mixing those two together is basically this. It's not bad, but like, the blue is weird. And I think whatever they put in food dye makes it so that the fizz is weirder. I don't know if you guys have noticed this with colored drinks, where the fizz becomes more like a foam rather than a standard just like bubbly fizz that you get when you pour a drink out.
Interesting.
Man, Matt, you're getting me excited because whenever you say blue Pepsi, I think about my all-time favorite soda pop, which was Pepsi Blue. And I remember going to a fam jam, and it was one of those, I don't know, one of my parents' Filipino associations, rented a hall, and they did this whole fundraising dinner, and there was a bunch of cans of Pepsi Blue. And if this wasn't this is pretty much one of the reasons I contributed to how hefty I was as a child. But I swear that night, boys, I drank like 8 cans of Pepsi Blue. And I've been chasing that high ever since.
Oh,
Matt, do you remember Pepsi Blue?
I only ever had Pepsi Blue one time. I didn't have it that often because I think I just didn't like how it tasted.
Oh, maybe I can't tell if this is just rose tinted glasses, but if you're telling me that Pepsi, what was it, electric citrus, hashtag not sponsored, hashtag no ads, might somehow make me reminisce of the good old days when I didn't care how much sugar I was ingesting, because boys, that's a lot of sugar. Maybe I might take a look at this. Matt, do you recommend this?
This was a sugar-free drink, so it was like
all the better. Yeah. All the better. Finally, Rakush, now that we're turning, admitting we're going wrong in our destructive hobbies, what do you need an intervention for?
Oh man. Thankfully I've not been like making irrational purchases per se, like nothing that I would say like I regret spending money on, but I kind of feel like it might be just takeout food.
But your area like thrives on takeout though.
Yeah, thrives. It is deadly. Like the amount of restaurants that I still have to try in this area as well. So like I'm tempted very easily, especially like when you're done after like a 10-hour workday and you're like, I can't cook. Like I got no energy to cook. And it's so easy to just go get something, from like these mysterious like family-owned chains, family-owned restaurants like Subway. Yeah.
Matt, Man, that's rough, Rakush. I know exactly the area, and just you can just walk out, follow your nose, and find
It's so
something.
tough.
And
Maybe full circle. It's kind of great that it's cold then.
wow, bravo, Rakush, bravo. I'm sure your stomach and let's face it, your wallet might be thanking the weather for that. But boys, we laid it out there. You know what? I thank you guys for being vulnerable with me because it makes me feel better, even though I feel real bad about spending that much on Pokemon cards. So never again. Uh, but chances are, in a month and a half, we'll see what happens there. But speaking about things that I want to like more than I actually do, it pains me to talk about the next demo that I played this week, and I'm talking about Six Samurai. The demo is now available on Steam. I believe this is scheduled for a release this year, but what it instantly caught my attention when I first saw, the gameplay trailer and the description of the game is this is a really, it's an overhead action game that evokes the same energy as Hotline Miami while having the aesthetic like a Cowboy Bebop or, that lo-fi. A lot of anime that has
Hmm.
those hip hop or at least underground hip hop sensibilities. Where Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I believe you tried the demo as well. What were you feeling about just the overall style of this game?
I mean, yeah, I felt that the overall style of the game was very, like you said, Cowboy Bebop, very Samurai Champloo, like a Western take on, or a more Western take on either of those is like the kind of vibe I was getting.
Yeah, and I think when I first saw it, I also thought this might be something, just at least the vibe up your alley, Rakush. But I sent you the trailer just before the show, just from a pure visual perspective. What were some of your first impressions just taking a look at the game?
I think, like, stylistically, I would be interested in seeing more of it. Gameplay wise, it does seem like it requires a little bit more skill, which is something I've been lacking with video games for the last basically decade. So yeah, like I mean, it seems interesting. It seems really cool. Inspired by a lot of things that I personally love a lot.
Hmm.
Um, would I actually play it? It has a little bit of like that Hotline Miami vibe to it, like the top down sort of like smooth transitions from like one action to the other kind of thing that looks great when executed correctly. It's just not something I was able to necessarily kind of lock down. So yeah.
Where, again, I think if when it comes down to it, I do think Hotline Miami is definitely up there in terms of one of my favorite games of all time, where there's just something about how intuitive the combat feels, just the flow of combat, and when you're really in the zone, how it just kind of all comes together for you to kind of express yourself in this violent playground of sorts. And I've been trying to scratch that itch ever since I've played. Oh gosh, Hotline Miami is an old game too. So, over a decade old at this point. Maybe even Hotline Miami 2 is over a decade old at this point. So I've always been trying to scratch that itch where any game that resembles that, I'll instantly gravitate towards and at least check out just because I do like that kind of action, chaotic gameplay. And with Six Samurai, since it has that lo-fi hip hop aesthetic, like I wanted to check it out. And when I started playing through the demo, first off the bat, I have to admit, Matt, I'm not sure if you what you thought, but I don't dig the characters. I don't especially like the writing. I know when you answer as your protagonist, you kind of have three different choices to how you reply to your sensei. And I feel like all three personality types being displayed, I'm just not vibing with at all. Writing, definitely not as strong as I'd like it, where I think visually it does remind me a lot. And I'm not trying to say this as a knock. It does remind me of a Flash game, uh,
Mm.
but in a good way. But also the actual writing and the story kind of reminds me of the same Flash games that I played again 2 decades ago at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Uh, where Matt,
Uh-huh.
story wise, what did you think of meeting our mass protagonist and his sensei?
I actually have no opinion on this, Jaren,
Hmm.
because there is a button in the top right corner when you start the game that just says instant action. And
Okay,
that I didn't know there was a story in this game until I decided to watch the trailer that you sent to Rakush. Um,
fair.
I didn't know there was dialogue in this. If you apparently, I guess if you hit that button, you just get dropped into it, and I didn't know this was a thing.
Which might have, again, I'm not trying to knock it, but it's not for me. The story's definitely not for me. And I was hoping that the action would be where, again, as I don't want to really compare. I feel bad about comparing it to Hotline Miami just because this should be a game that stands on its own. But at the same time, I feel like there's something I get about the game's combat flow that feels weird to me. Where
Mm.
one of the things that I really enjoyed about Hotline Miami is just kind of how when you kind of go about the different levels, you're able to react to what's happening around you. And even if you're being swarmed by a few people, you can kind of get your bearings. If something, say you go into a room, something doesn't go the way you expected, you're still able to kind of play around that and, just have a good comprehension of what's going on and react accordingly to the situation being present. Where I feel like with Six Samurai, the game wants you to be really precise.
Hmm.
Even though there's a button that kind of lets you peek into the next room that you might barge into, where I feel like it wants you to map out a perfect run through trial and error. And the end result is you being able to execute this choreographed run that you've come up with just over the course of like 12 resets or something, where it does have a dodge button. And it says, hey, if you should really be dodging more because that gives you some invulnerability frames. But I feel like the actual levels themselves are pretty compact where dodging doesn't feel great. Maybe I'm bad and I can't get the iframes to work out, but I feel like even if I'm trying to dodge out of the way, I'm still being swamped. I'm still being kind of instantly killed as well. Where
Mm.
even the attacks seem to be on a kind of charge where you can't really just run in and start just spamming your attack button. You kind of have there's like a flow to this game. There's like a rhythm to this game that
Hmm.
I personally couldn't get my head around. And even if I found myself trying to compensate by maybe mashing the attack, since I'm on an attack cooldown, can't do anything, then I'm getting my head sliced off. And then, I kind of stuck with it. And then I started getting to the enemies that would block your attacks. And I thought, maybe I'm not maybe I need to get more good because this currently isn't vibing with me. Where I feel in a game like this, I want to feel like I have more control. Where here, I feel like, okay, I need to do A, B, C, D in this exact order at this specific timing for it to all work out. Where that's kind of me personally. But Matt, I know you also jumped straight into the action. How are you
Hmm.
feeling about Six Samurai's gameplay?
I think initially I very much felt like how you did. I
Hmm.
honestly hated how this game controlled at first until I was able
Right.
to go into the options, change some key bindings, and for me, most importantly, switch from the regular cursor to the screen cursor. Um,
Okay. Because I was going to ask you, Matt, because I found the default controls on mouse and keyboard almost unplayable, where I found a
yes.
lot more success when I switched to a controller. But
Okay.
kind of with your changes, Matt, how did it feel once you kind of made those edits?
Yeah. So to kind of just go back a little bit to explain the initial control scheme, which is that when you are kind of playing this game, you have your slash bound to your left mouse button,
Hmm.
and Your slash moves you forward slightly to like wherever you click to, up to a certain distance. And my issue was that when you did this, your character moves to like where your mouse is, and then your mouse is also kind of moved to the center, so it is now on top of the player.
Yeah.
And I absolutely hated this because that meant that if I wanted to, let's say slash two people who are in a line in front of me, I would have to, click on the first guy, move my mouse up again once I hit the first guy, and then click on the second guy. Whereas with the unlocked mouse, I can set my mouse past both of them, and then it will move me forward when I slash, and then I can click again and it'll move me forward again. My mouse would not have moved, and I can continue on that straight trajectory. And
I feel like that just, yeah, I think that by default should be, how it's set, because with that, to me at least, it sounds like it opens up combat a bit more. Because, yeah, that having the mouse kind of be bound to you really made reacting to who was going, like rushing towards you, kind of a pain for me at least.
Yeah, like once I did that, honestly, I loved the game.
Okay.
The action in this game, like you said, is not as reactionary as Hotline Miami. The game itself is kind of divided into much smaller rooms when you compare the two games. Each room really being maybe like 1 to 6, I guess, like enemies in it. And, there's no enemies, at least as far as I've seen, no enemies traveling between rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And once you unlock this mouse, honestly, I think that if you like Osu, you're gonna love this game.
Oh, okay.
Because this game is very much about basically hitting beat markers, which are the enemies. Jaren, you mentioned that the attack is on a cooldown. The attack is only on a cooldown if you miss.
Yeah.
If you hit an enemy with your slash, you are immediately able to attack again. So this game is very much not about spamming your mouse. It's about, like you said, precision. You have to precisely click on basically beat markers to clear a room. And, once I got into that flow, again, it is not a reactionary game. And this is about building a choreographed run where, as you get to each new room, you're kind of looking at the characters that are there. And, once you are able to choreograph, the early part of your run, you're able to consistently reach a room at a time when everybody is going to be at the same place because, the enemies wander around in a room slightly, but they're on preset paths. So you are able to do that, choreograph thing. And once you string together that perfect run, it just feels so good. And I don't know, like you can take your time with it. You can peer into rooms before you get into them. Like you very much can clear this on your first run. But I think the the flow state that you're talking about of having the run mapped in your head and slowly building it like perfect is really, really good.
Yeah, where I feel like this game also needs a similar to, what was that John Wick Hex game, I believe, or like even fights with in tight spaces where once you finish a successful run, I wish it kind of just replayed your run because I think that would look pretty cool. Where maybe I need to try it again with the unlocked mouse because and then once again get into that mindset where this is definitely a game about precision and mapping out your perfect run where maybe I just want to kind of go in all willy-nilly and slash some dudes and feel good about myself. But if you want that precision, I do still want to recommend Six Samurai just because, again, I really love the vibe, love the soundtrack. Writing, not really my favorite, but if you can just jump right into the action, maybe this might be kind of up your alley as well. But Matt, any other thoughts about the demo that kind of made you appreciate it more?
Yeah, you really have to mess around with, I think, the settings for mouse and keyboard to get it to feel good. But other than that, like, I think the demo is like really good. I don't understand the scoring system. Maybe they explain it in the story, but I don't really understand how the scoring system works right now. in terms of you
Uh,
getting a grade at the end of the level.
yeah.
But yeah.
I'm not sure if they kind of explain it, but all I know is your sensei wants you to kill everyone in this exact location before
Hmm.
he's done smoking his cigarette. Which,
Oh,
again,
okay. Hmm.
maybe that's why the cigarette timer is up there, Matt. But
Mm.
uh, again, vibes are good, story not so much. But gameplay wise, if you want something to be precise, if you want to feel like a bona fide badass, maybe this might be for you. But if you want to kind of try to react to everything around you, maybe not. But still check it out. Demo
Hmm.
available now on Steam.
Oh, sorry.
But what's
One more
up?
thing. One more thing. I don't like how long. Okay, so the music soundtrack is like a for each level is like I don't know. I want to say like a 3 to 5 minute track, but
Mhm.
there is so much silence at the end of every track that I hate it.
Right.
I think they need to like really shorten the silence at the end of each track so that you don't have that kind of quiet time between loops.
Because again, this is all about being in that flow state, and you need that soundtrack
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
uh, really add to your runs. And yeah, I did notice that as well, where I did think my Bluetooth headset just kind of disconnected or turned off, where I
Mm-hmm.
was a bit freaked out there. But yeah, Six Samurai demo available now. I believe this is also coming out this year. I guess the moral of this segment is go into your settings, play around with the mouse controls, and maybe don't play it like you do Hotline Miami. But speaking about demos that I checked out on Steam this week, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
lucky for us, one of the games, a 2024 game that we wanted to play on 2025, is getting a Steam release, and that got a Steam demo just the other day. And I'm
Mm.
talking about Stellar Blade from Shift Up. Demo available now. I believe the full launch is next week. And I know people have described this as initial discourse says this is Sekiro, but you play as a K-pop idol, where I think this is less. I think it's less Sekiro and more akin to a tighter character action game, just because the game itself is pretty flashy. But I'll be honest, boys, I have to give shout outs to the developer Shiftuff, because after you finish the story portion of the demo, which goes up to the first mid boss fight, you unlock a boss challenge mode where you're able to fight another boss with more skills unlocked, more mechanics that you can explore. And I feel like, most importantly, you have a different outfit for the protagonist Eve in the boss challenge mode, which
This
it
guy.
is one of those games, considering that the complete edition unlocks you a bunch of different outfits. Even the trailer that plays after you finish the story demo, Eve goes through a lot of different outfits. So if you're looking for dress up Sekiro, this might be your game. But again, as someone who didn't originally play Stellar Blade on the PlayStation 5, it does feel like more of a blend between a character action game with hard hitting bosses rather than a more methodical Sekiro or Souls like, to me at least. Um, but again, to be fair, when I think about my time with Sekiro, Matt, you listened to
Mm-hmm.
me talk about it for an hour and a half. All I
Uh-huh.
was doing in Sekiro was essentially parrying and praying. But with Stellar Blade, there seems to be a lot more mechanics that it wants you to play around with, where I'm not sure, at least in the 80 minutes that I spent with the demo, maybe, again, similar to Six Samurai, I might not have the patience to kind of really learn all those mechanics. And if I had to be completely honest, boys, I feel like Zenless Zone Zero also made me a soft boy, softer than I already was, because Matt,
Uh-huh.
I need my attacks to be way more telegraphed for my parries and my perfect dodges. Where every time I was attacked by a monster in Stellar Blade, I was missing that orange glow, I was missing that sound effect, and I was getting hit and feeling bad about it. Matt, do you
Yeah.
think ZZZ made you a softer boy?
Um, Probably, yeah. The kind of warning telegraph is very, very important for me now. Or I got very, very used to it. That when I wasn't getting that in Clair Obscure, I was a little bummed.
Oh man, this is what happens when you play gotcha games, unfortunately. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, so what I mean about some of the different mechanics that it asks you to play around with, like for the dodge counter, for example, if someone attacks you, especially if they have a yellow glow, without the sound effects, of course, those can't be parried. You have to do a dodge attack, and when you do a dodge, that really puts you into a not necessarily witch time, but it does slow time down a bit, and you're able to go for a follow up. But if you want to do a dodge counter where you zip behind the enemy and then start, be able to attack them from behind, you essentially have to look at the enemy attacking you, and then right when it's your parry dodge window, you have to also make sure that your sword is glowing blue and you're able to hit B and up to do the dodge behind the enemy who's attacking you. So it's kind of a lot different mechanics like that you kind of have to kind of keep in mind, that probably when you play more of the game becomes a lot more intuitive as well. But other than that, it's your typical what you would expect from something like a Souls Light, where you do have camps that respawn a few enemies whenever you use them, restocks your items, and you do have a skill tree that kind of gives you, one of the skills that I bought right away was makes the parry window slightly easier, but you can also buy stuff like more attacks, more combo strings, a double jump, and yeah, again, as someone who played Sekiro, like, hey, I'm just gonna wait for the parry, and then I'm just gonna, slash my sword 3 times and then, rinse and repeat. Here you have charged attacks and fun combos that look visually pretty cool. So that's something that I probably would have to be in a right headspace for, just to really kind of digest these mechanics. But I did think the demo looked pretty good, even for my aging PC as well. And if I had to be honest, I know I believe the complete edition also introduces a few difficulty options where when you start the demo, you can pick, oh, do you want to play story mode or do you want to play, the normal challenging mode? And boys, I don't know about you, but when a game asks me what difficulty I want to play on, and one of the options is story mode, I feel like I have to pick normal mode, because if I don't, I'm not getting my money's worth. Am I a weirdo, or do you kind of feel that way too, Rakush?
Story mode for life.
Oh,
Uh, Rakush, there's no story mode for life.
Nah, dude, like, listen, man, like, we don't have all that much time nowadays. If they're giving me a story mode, I'm gonna play a story mode.
Fair.
Because I want the story.
Yeah, and I kind of, it really depends. But Matt, when you're approaching a difficulty, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think I'm just taking the opposite standpoint of Rakush here, where
keeping in mind that with the demo for Six Samurai, he went for instant action.
Yeah, like I barely care about stories even outside of video games. So if I'm gonna play a game, I want it to be either like I guess like normal is usually as devs intended, or if it's like a genre that I'm used to, I will like bump up the difficulty on it.
Right. Where, yeah, I don't know. I feel like Stellar Blade should be a game for me. Maybe I need to drop off my ZZZ training wheels for just a minute and kind of go back to that Sekiro mindset. But at the same time, I thought the demo itself had a really good impression. I thought the parries felt great. One kind of a weird nitpick, but I feel like when Eve goes into her running state, I don't feel like she runs fast enough compared to like say a character in a character action game where I feel like her run still feels like a jog, and that makes me feel real bad. Where I don't know about you boys, but if my character has if I'm holding R no L3 to dash, I feel like you need to be at a full sprint at that point, not like a decent jog, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, that was Stellar Blade. I know coming out next week, I believe, and I might wait for a sale, but it would have to be before December because if I don't, I won't be able to redeem the Nikkei costume code because boys, you get a costume code for the character Scarlet, who's also going to be an optional boss here in Stellar Blade. And that costume is for a gacha costume, where in Nikkei, it's a mobile game. They have, a few different ways you can purchase costumes, but one of the most, gacha ass ways to do their premium costumes is what they call the gacha system, where you're essentially rolling a gacha to see if you can get a certain costume where if you're not lucky, you'll end up spending $90 to get this costume. So essentially, it's you spend $90 to get this costume in game, or you spend the $90 to buy this game, to buy the costume and get Stellar Blade for free. So take that what you will, Nikki fans. But yeah, that's Stellar Blade. Matt, since this was on your list to play this year, will you at least check out the demo in the near future?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be checking out the demo maybe this week.
Okay. But
Jared, I really appreciate how much of a sigh there was when you said it's a mobile game.
Nikkei is a mobile game, which I've talked about
yes.
at lengths here on the Mistake Zone. And
yes, I just really appreciate how much of a sigh you took when you said that as well.
Boys, I dig my own grave here. And not gonna lie, I'm looking forward to the Nikkei Stellar Blade collab that will happen in 2 weeks' time. So hopefully I can roll Eve in my Nikkei game. But Matt, I heard you drop an ooh. What's up?
2 things about the demo. First, I don't like it when demos are 75 gigs. And second,
I thought it was 16.
I don't know. It says, I'm looking at the demo page right now. It says like demo requirement is 75 gigs of available space. Maybe like it's
that's weird.
Unpacked space and everything, but maybe.
It told me when I was installing, I needed, boys, if you wanted an update of my dire SSD situation, I had to uninstall a certain beta. I had to uninstall Six Samurai and maybe deliver at all costs for me to play this demo.
Yeah. Also, there's a negative review here that says way too hard for old people. I have marked it helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
There's a story mode.
There you go.
There's a story
mode for life.
But yeah. That was my time with the Stellar Blade demo. Hopefully down the road I'll talk about the game proper after, I don't know, maybe there's a discount and then I can feel good about playing through on story mode. But Rakush,
for anybody else, by the way, this is originally a PS5 game that you can probably get for cheaper if you don't want to play it on PC.
Yep. So mind you, there are 2 copies. There is the standard edition, which probably does have the premium compared to the PS5 version. But this will also release a complete edition similar to the PS5 that's getting it as well. That has all the DLC, extra costumes, and of course the Nikkei and the Nier Automata DLC included in that as well. So yeah, depending on what platform you have access to, a few options for Stellar Blade now and even starting next week again. But Rakush, you've been trying to ride into the sunset, I hear, or at least try attempt to. But Rakush,
I'm not retiring or nothing here. That made it sound very That made it sound like I'm off the show.
Well,
We'll talk
Am I
about
getting
that after.
retired?
yeah,
Am I
yeah.
getting graduated like one of your VTubers? Holy shit!
Oh,
We'll talk about it
man.
after the episode. There's been some
Oh
problematic
my God.
things I've been bringing to the show, Rakush, and I think we just need to take this off air.
You mean the copious amounts of anime?
Uh,
Got it.
but yeah, Rakush, how's your time with Red Dead Redemption 2?
Yeah, not anime. Famously not anime.
Yes,
Sure.
I'm fairly confident.
Is there a
with that
mod?
one.
I'll look.
I'm sure there is. I've never looked it up. Matt's looking it up right now. Great. Okay. Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2. This is actually the third time I've started this game. This is the first time I'm hoping to actually complete it. So the first time I played it was on the PS4. The second time was on the PC when it was on the Epic Game Store. Both times I had to kind of stop for non-quality related reasons. It was just more so like time and circumstances and setup of like, my gaming rig and things like that not being the way I would have preferred it to have for a game of this caliber. And so this week, the Sony stores had their summer sale to kind of, I guess, coincide with the Steam summer sale, and it was for $20. It's still going for full price, regular price, so $20 is a good price for me there. And yeah, I figured, you know what, I can get it on the PS5. I finally feel good about the setup I have. Let me reinstall this game. And that was on like the Wednesday or Thursday before this recording. It's a Sunday for us. I'm already like 20 hours in. I'm doing a lot of things that are the third time I'm doing it, and it's just interesting. And like, this game is phenomenal, man. Like, it's very rare that I look at a modern open world game and say, this is the right amount of open world. Like, it always feels a little bit too overwhelming for me. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do next. Whereas I found with like Red Dead at this point, and again, maybe it's because I'm doing things I've already done before, but like, Red Dead kind of celebrates that absence of things to do. Like, you can literally just ride your horse around for like a day, come back to camp, and I feel like you would be satisfied with that whole experience. Like, I do think that it really kind of like, just allows you to chill out in this game in a way that I had never seen it before this game when it originally came out, and I haven't seen it since. Like, this game has been out for 6-7 years at this point. And yeah, it really just encourages you, man, to like take your time with it, to like not rush things. 20 hours into like this playthrough, I've barely rode my horse at full speed, like, unless I'm getting chased down by some like random gang or something. But no, it's been a phenomenal playthrough so far. First time I'm actually able to play with HDR as well. They've got two versions of HDR. So there's a cinematic, and then there's just like one that seems overly bright, like a little bit too much. But the cinematic version is like absolutely stunning. Yeah, like I think like it's just one of those games where I really wanted to make sure like I had the time to get back to it and play it in a way that I would feel satisfied with it. When I was playing it on the PC, one of the things I definitely was doing was kind of going mission to mission, just kind of rushing a few things that I feel like this time around I'm absolutely noticing how much I was potentially missing just from like it might be like subtle story points or like a vibe standpoint or just like a progression of the story thing that like I was kind of missing when I was just going mission to mission. Part of it also is I do kind of know where this game goes. Like, it's very difficult to avoid spoilers for this game how many years later, right? So not like I don't know what's coming up beyond the last point that I'd played it to. But even just kind of like experiencing some of those story points that I know are treated in the moment as like something in passing, but end up being very significant in like, later parts of the game. And even knowing that like, oh shit, I'm actually writing to this mission right now, so like, I'm not going to get into full spoilers for this one mission, anyone who's played the game will know which one I'm even referring to without me saying much more, because it's kind of like the turning point for Arthur's story very early on. And you get this letter at your Horseshoe Overlook camp. And the moment you interact with this letter, you're locked into doing this one quest or mission. And I kind of didn't want to do it at that point, but I had no choice. And there was like absolutely a moment where I had to make my peace with what was coming up. And I was like, man, this sucks and stuff. So then, like, one of the cool things about Horseshoe Overlook that I actually had missed in the first two playthroughs was you can pour yourself a cup of coffee, which sounds like a very simple thing, except when you're playing the game as like you've woken up first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. You pour yourself a cup of coffee, you walk over to like the cliff and just look out into the horizon. There's like a hint of fog sometimes it's just crystal clear, depending on the day, right? Like it can be like a very scenic thing or whatever. And like with this playthrough, I get locked into having to do this mission, and I know I'm gonna have to ride out on this thing, and it's crystal clear blue skies. And so I just pour myself a cup of coffee. I sit there as Arthur for a few minutes, just kind of take in everything. Um, Look over to like, a lot of the supporting characters and stuff. And then like, yeah, like, I just kind of sat there for like 10 minutes. And then I just got up, get on the horse, and it gets into like the cinematic basically that's like taking you from one place to the next. And even that was just like beautiful skies and everything. And it was like this weirdly like beautiful way to kind of like do this unavoidable mission. And man, like, it's just, yeah, like, I do think sometimes spoilers aren't a bad thing. Like sometimes spoilers allow you to appreciate kind of like, how fitting like a final moment can be before like a mission, or how fitting like, the scenario might be for like something that comes up or whatever. And it's just, yeah, like this moment just kind of felt so magical in a way that games very rarely have given me that feeling, right? And of course, like, these are the things that Rockstar do very well. These are the things that Rockstar make a lot of their money off of. And these are the kind of moments which reminded me why I wanted to wait before I played the game in an ideal setup for me personally. And so far it's been phenomenal. And like, just kind of like experiencing a lot of those kind of moments have been bittersweet, funny, like, some have just been straight up awesome. And like, I'm really glad I waited for how long I did. And I'm really glad that I have been playing it, like, with the setup that I have now. And I gotta say, guys, like, this is a PS4 game. I'm playing this like 7 years after release on the PS5. I would still make an argument it looks better than most PS5 games that I have actually played on this system. It is gorgeous.
I feel like that's a very Rockstar thing on being like a graphics tier ahead of the current generation system.
It really it really pushed the PS4, I think, right? And I think that's also why like I bought it on the PC as well, is this realization that like there's a prettier version of this game. I have the equipment to play the prettier version of this game. Let me get it. But then on top of that as well, like that kind of same feeling went into the PS5, where I'm like, oh, they might release the PS5 version. I'll just play it then. But the PS4 version is still gorgeous, and like it's still stunning. Like the thing I just described about like overseeing like or like looking out into the horizon with like this like hint of fog, right? Like a hint of fog is not, it's not something I would describe in most video games. In most video games, it's like, oh yeah, that's fog. Like there's no real like element of subtlety to it or whatever, and like, yeah, man, they just capture everything so well. And I definitely feel like this is a game where the quiet moments are the loudest. I know that's a contradiction, but like it is the quiet moments that have stuck out to me. It is the quiet moments where I'll just sometimes be like in the middle of a map and I'll pause and I'll look out and I'm like, wow, like this is stunning. This is gorgeous. Or like, it'll just kind of make me like set up a camp and then just like chill out there for a little bit, you know, and like just overlook a few things. Like there's been a lot of those moments already, and yeah, I'm just really glad to have experienced a lot of that. So yeah.
Right. Where with Red Dead Redemption 2 in particular, it's a game that I've started similar to you, Rakush. I've started a few times on and off, or at least tried to kind of go back to my save file. And it's something that, uh, you know, I have to admit, and I might be ashamed to admit that it's something I've fallen off of, but it's something that I do appreciate kind of as a game and as a just overall open world that is unlike what you're kind of used to in the Rockstar formula. And what I mean by that is, to me, Red Dead Redemption 2 in particular feels like a game that wants you to play by its rules, in a sense, where you kind of talking about that moment with Arthur, just, having that cup of coffee, having that stroll, like being able to appreciate the environments. I feel like that's for you to be able to do that, the world has to be especially crafted, and kind of, I'm trying to word this properly. There needs to be a certain amount of limitations on the player as well for you to have that as a viable option to explore. And what I mean by that is, well, I contrast that to Grand Theft Auto 5, where I feel like with the GTA series in particular, there's such a different sense of sensibilities at play, where it's a lot more difficult to have those tranquil moments that you find in Red Dead Redemption 2 in particular, just because in between those heavy story beats, it's a lot more harder to have those moments of introspection, just because any number of things can happen in particular that kind of breaks you from that tranquil state, at least for me personally, where say I'm in Los Santos, I'm driving down, I'm driving down whatever Vinewood or their Hollywood equivalent, the sun setting, Kendrick Lamar is playing, and I'm just thinking about a story beat that just happened. There's a chance, realistically, that a NPC car will just ram into me, will stop. Since you as the player aren't necessarily playing in the rules that govern the GTA world, there's so many ways that that immersion breaks. And on the flip side, even though the world of Red Dead Redemption feels so vast, it's a lot more tranquil. It's a lot more quiet, where there's less chance for that NPC just to walk by and tell you to fuck yourself, where you're able to have those moments to yourselves, even if you are walking to your impending doom, where that's what I come to appreciate from my time with Red Dead Redemption 2.
And I think like another part to add to what you're saying as well that really enhances the experience is it's not empty. It's quiet, but it's not empty. And I feel like that is such an important distinction with a lot of these games. Like I think we've spoken about Horizon Forbidden West and Zero Dawn and stuff, but like that game, for me, one of the things that it really struggles with is filling in this vast world with life, or with like, a life that previously existed there, especially for a game that's like kind of post-apocalyptic. That's, to me, sometimes a little bit of a struggle for me to enjoy that game,
Yeah.
Whereas with like Red Dead, I do feel like there's always a presence, of like something. Like the world itself is living in a weird way sometimes, or it might just be like an animal scurrying, along or whatever, or like, you might just hear like a little bit of that howling, or like something, like you'll always hear it. And so like you never feel like it's this empty world. And I think that's also really strong and impressive about this game too, and like nothing like it exists. I don't think so, at least.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely an experience that it just feels like everything that is being presented to you, or even things that you're doing, is all contributing to this kind of cinematic approach that they're trying to tell the story, or at least present to you, where I feel like that's a lot more difficult to get in a Grand Theft Auto, and I'm really curious how much of the sensibilities that we do see in Red Dead may be able to influence Grand Theft Auto 6 next year, or if it might be more of the same. That, like, I
Yeah.
understand it's a big city with lots of life where it might be hard for you to have those moments of introspection. But at the same time, if Grand Theft Auto 6 is being set up to be one of, if not the biggest entertainment drops uh, of our lifetime, you would hope that some of the things that really made Red Dead great in terms of production help influence what is being presented in Grand Theft Auto 6. Or plus, again, it's that you have just so much, in my opinion, so much more opportunity in Grand Theft Auto 6 just to cause super chaos. Where my time with both Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2 is I actually feel like I'm trying to play this character, their story, as opposed to a Grand Theft Auto game where it's, oh, maybe I will play Crazy Taxi for a hot minute and
Yeah,
then get back
yeah.
to the story. So
It's a self-insert in Grand Theft Auto versus like with Red Dead, you're playing a very distinct, like a very defined character.
mhm.
John Marston in the first Red Dead, very defined. Arthur Morgan, very defined, right? Like Grand Theft Auto does have defined characters. It's not like there's a lack of story. Of course, like, you've got CJ from San Andreas, you've got Nico from GTA 4. I cannot remember all three of the guys from 5, but like they have distinct characters, but I feel like they're a little bit broader in how they're presented so that you can still play that character the way that you want to play that character, I feel like.
Yeah.
And the last thing I will say about Red Dead 2 as well, and why it kind of feels like the right time to play it more than anything else. Like, a big theme of that game is they're the last of the outlaws, or as they say, last of their kind. Like, this idea that like cowboys don't really exist. It's been a thing for this game from Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. It's a big thing for Arthur as well. It's like we're a dying breed is kind of like what he's constantly talking about. And that's not like a very direct translation, but it speaks more so to like this idea that like things that like we do in our lives become obsolete as time goes on, right? Like whether it's our way of living, whether it's the things that we do for work, whether it's the things that we studied in school sometimes, like whatever it is, like our life as we get older is becoming more and more obsolete. And part of our entire journey is also sometimes having to make a peace with that element of our lives as well. That like, what we grew up with is not going to exist anymore, right? Like, I've had a bunch of experiences with, for example, going back to India or meeting friends after like a decade or whatever, where it's just like things are different. Things are not going to be what they were when we were younger. And it's making peace with that change, which is a very central theme of this game as well. And so that's kind of influencing a little bit of how I'm playing this game too, because that moment of just sitting down and like, drinking that coffee, looking into the horizon, like the reason that sticks out to me, and I cannot remember if I brought this up in a recording from a couple of weeks back on an episode or not, but like this concept of like the older we get, it feels like time is moving faster because of just how many or how few new things we experience there are, right? And so it's like we sometimes don't necessarily take the moment in. We don't just like sit with the moment because everything is just kind of in a previous experience. And to me, like a little bit of this game as well is just kind of appreciating those moments. And that's why like appreciating those quiet moments is so powerful here. And yeah, so like there's a lot of just like deeper connection for like, what it is that I'm looking for this out of this game. What is it that like, I'm feeling while playing this game, and why it kind of feels like the right timing as someone that's about to be 36 in like a couple of months, right? Like that's something to think about. Not that like, we're dying in like 2-3 years. I hope not. But more so just like yeah, we are very much washed in a way, like we are not the ones that are championing crypto. We're not championing AI. Like we grew up going to high school when technology was still banned from classrooms. Like we couldn't have a laptop, we couldn't have a phone, like, and 4 years later, I would say, not even maybe, like that entirely changed. But that's part of the experience of like things are changing. The way we studied is obsolete. The things that we learned might become obsolete. And yeah, thanks for coming to my TED talk.
So yeah, the moral of Rakush's
We're
segment
not
is
getting
don't
into
play
that.
video games. I get you.
No, you don't. You don't play video games. Rakush doesn't play video games. He experiences them.
Fair.
Yes.
Big fair. Well, now that so Red Dead Redemption 2 available now on your most likely chosen platform, and I think rumor is Switch 2 in the near future, allegedly. But
Don't be surprised if your Switch 2 starts smoking because of the game it's playing.
Okay, can I? How important is smoking? Because one of the top mods for Red Dead Redemption 2 is one that's called Smoking Complete, which enhances your gameplay with immersive smoking.
Oh, no, sorry. I meant your actual Switch just starts going up in smoke.
Okay.
I feel like that is underplaying. If the Red Dead can run on a Series S, I think it will be fine on the Switch 2.
It's just a Nintendo joke.
Damn. Matt, as a Nintendo-year-old, I think this is another strike against Rakush and his performance review. But
Damn.
Hey, listen, if I'm already graduating at the end of this episode.
no, graduating means that's a positive note, Rakush. This is
You're dropping out.
this is the other one.
Actually.
I thought graduating was like the way people in Japan say you get fired.
No, graduation.
No.
Graduating is voluntarily leaving. Like you are resigning. You're resigning.
How
like,
voluntary is this really?
I mean, it's pretty voluntary for the most part.
This is no, Matt. Maybe we just scrubbed Rakush from Mistake Zone existence afterwards.
This episode does not exist.
There's gonna be a really long, like 20-minute gap of just like nothing.
Just gonna play it away as like Rakush's internet went down.
Mm-hmm.
We just left the blank spots in here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, going from someone's cowboy life to someone's fantasy life, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
I counterpicked this in our fantasy critic because I thought this game would never come out. But it came out, and I feel like people are really digging Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. Matt, how did you spend your time with Fantasy Life?
You know, it feels. I really wish that we put this segment, before Rakush's Red Dead Redemption 2. Because
I feel like that's a trend with Saturday Morning Arcade and the Mistake Zone. Never let me go first.
No, well, maybe, but also I feel like Rakush's segment would have been better to close on rather than my willy-nilly bullshit on Fantasy Life 2 or Fantasy Life I, because this isn't a game that you experience. This is a game that you play and you grind in.
Well, okay. A game that others might experience, but a game that you are playing. We've made it clear this episode.
I very much think that even if you want to go very deep into this, I think that Fantasy Life I is very much a game that's about grinding rather than about its story. Like regardless of I know that I bullshit my way through stories and games, or it's not really like a part that I care about, but I think that this is one of those games where if you want to grind, you've found your game.
I do like to grind, Matt.
Honestly,
what are we grinding?
Yes. So Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time, is the second game in its series, Fantasy Life. I don't know if it had a subtitle, but for the 3DS, I believe, was the original release. And this is basically just like a improved version of that game. The basic loop of this game, or I guess I want to say the original game first, is that you find yourself in a town and you are able to literally get a life, and if you want, you can get multiple lives, and these lives are, I think, what other games are basically just called jobs And these jobs are things like, oh, you can be a hunter, you can be a woodcutter, you can be a tailor, and stuff like that, where the game kind of divides all the jobs into one of three categories: the combat category, which has paladin, mercenary, hunter, magician. There's the gathering jobs, which are miner, woodcutter, angler, farming. And then the crafting jobs, which are cook, blacksmith, carpenter, tailor, alchemist, artist. And all of these jobs basically kind of move you through the game no matter what. You can, play this game picking one job, or you can take all the jobs that you want. But in essence, what is happening is, you are kind of playing this game to, like I said, grind. Each of these jobs or lives has their own way to grind, where the combat jobs are you're going to be fighting things, gathering jobs, obviously you're going to gather things, and then crafting jobs, you're going to be making things that you get from the combat monsters and the gathering nodes. And that was like basically the base game and, the skeleton for this newer game. What this newer game brings is Animal Crossing and Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Because while you still have that kind of base fantasy life gameplay, I think it is not going to surprise you guys to know that in The Girl Who Steals Time, you are able to travel through time.
What?
It's a shocker. It's a shocker. Honestly, one part of this that really shocked me is that there's three timelines that you can go into. I thought there was only going to be two.
Is there any crossover with the movie The Girl Who Leapt Through Time?
I haven't seen one yet. I hope that there is. There probably isn't going to be. But
would have been a good goof or a good Easter egg at least.
Would have been good. I don't know if that has like the social cachet to integrate into a game. Like, I want to say more than a decade after its initial release.
That movie's really popular.
Okay, I just want to confirm it is more than a decade old, right?
Let me double check here.
Well, Rakush is double checking that. Matt, have to ask. In this game, is there a hat in time?
Actually, sort of. There is a magical helmet that goes onto your bird friend that lets it talk.
Man, I've had a hat in time on my Steam wish list for probably since this game actually came out. Man, I don't think I'll ever play a hat in time.
Probably not.
Guys, this movie came out in 2006.
Okay, so that's like 2 decades ago, basically.
Fuck.
And I think that, as popular as that movie is, I think that you have to be like Ghibli level to like make a 20 generation like leap. I think I would more likely expect a Princess Mononoke like DLC tie-in than a Girl Who Leapt Through Time tie-in.
This might be a different convo for a different day, but I feel like Mamoru Hosoda is a very well-known director if anyone watches anime. So like, yeah. But it might also just be because I just bought an art book for that movie. So, Back to Girl Who Did Not Leap Through Time.
Who may or may not have a hat in time either.
Yes.
So, there are 3 kind of timelines, or 3 time periods that you can go through, and each of them have their kind of own gameplay style to them. When you go to the past, you are kind of interacting with who I'm assuming is the girl who left through time. Or the girl who steals time. There are a couple characters who I think could be the girl who steals time that the game is referring to, but I'm not 100% sure on that just yet as far as the story goes. But the past timeline or the past like time period is where you have your basic fantasy life thing, where you are getting your jobs, you are going around the area and doing a lot of your old school kind of grinding. And then when you go to the present, you have your Animal Crossing portion of the game, where you're kind of building on top of the ruins of the past civilization, which is kind of like sad now that I'm saying this out loud, that you're, kind of building over I guess I want to say like the graves of your old friends.
Damn.
Where you're able to kind of through the ruins that it honestly seems like they went through something really, really bad, like something apocalyptic happened. And I'm assuming they all were not reaching peaceful deaths. You're kind of like building over the ruins of this village, where you are able to take in villagers, and they are able to, live in this, honestly, yeah, like I was saying, like a really scaled down Animal Crossing New Horizons style area where you're able to, build houses, build bridges, build, platforms. You're able to terraform the area. You have a, honestly, this like magic robot that lets you go into like an overhead grid view that lets you do your terraforming a lot easier, which I really hope is going to be in whatever the sequel for New Horizons is. But these villagers all come from the future time period, where it is a lot more Breath of the Wildy, where you're traveling in this big wilderness. You are walking up to these kind of big towers to reveal areas of the map, and you are finding these things called strangelings, which are people who have been turned into items, very much like Beauty and the Beast style. I think like one of the first people you find is a sentient clothing cabinet, and then kind of the plot point there is that you are bringing these strangelings from the future to the present timeline, where another Animal Crossing mechanic comes in, which I actually didn't know about this going into the game, is that this game has a real-time clock where every day, like, there are these resources spawning that you can use to transform these strangelings back into people. And, these are the people that you add to your village, and you are able to bring these people across time to help you do your stuff. And I think that this is how the game is going to really kind of boost the single life or job playstyle, because all the people that you are bringing have their own jobs to them, like of the jobs that I mentioned before, and they are able to, do that portion for you if you don't have that job, and they are able to boost your ability to do that job if you do have that job. And, all of these components are all feeding into each other fairly, well. I think that it all integrates pretty well. One kind of, I guess, like, thing that I think people should know going into this is that the story is kind of always going forward, and you need to make time for yourself to go grind. Like, it's not really giving you time to or it's letting you kind of progress the story as you want, and you can definitely progress the story to a point where you are going to areas that you're going to be out leveled if you didn't take the time to grind. And honestly, because of that, I really, really wish that instead of playing this just standard PC like I have been playing it, I really wish I got this as a Switch game or had a Steam Deck or Steam Deck equivalent, because I think this game very much fits in that I'm going to play it for an hour or two kind of burst after you get past the kind of opening segments where, everything is being set up. Because the lives themselves are all within their kind of overarching categories are very similar. The combat stuff is very much about, hey, whatever class you pick, you have a late attack, a heavy attack, and then you have a special attack on, your bumpers. And as you level these jobs up, you're able to, get charge attacks, or, you're able to switch out your special attack for different special attacks. And then for the gathering, these are very much the same mechanic where, for example, on a tree, you're like, you can like hit the tree normally and chop it down like a la Animal Crossing style, but all of these nodes themselves have HP bars, and there's good spots of the tree to hit, there's bad spots of the tree to hit. You're able to kind of, critically hit the trees, and you're able to, again, get abilities that let you spend your, I guess, stamina resource in a way that you're able to cut down trees, or whatever node you're working on, because all the nodes themselves all slowly regenerate health, and it's basically a race against your stamina to see if you can finish off the node. And then all of the resources they get from combat and gathering can be fed into crafting, where you're able to, for example, make better gear so that you can fight better or harvest better. I think a thing that really makes you want to grind these things in particular is that it's just a basic kind of rhythm mini game that you use to create anything, food, armor, weapons, but every time you create a piece of armor or equipable gear, they kind of have depending on how well you did, you can get a RNG based bonus on your item where it's like, oh, if you're building a axe, you can, for example, have a wider sweet spot ratio, or you have more chance to crit, or you just have bonus like just main, I guess, attack stat for the axe itself, which kind of promotes you doing more crafting than you need to, and kind of furthers that whole kind of, oh, you want to make stuff and then sell it to the store, and then make stuff and sell to the store to like keep that kind of grind going. Like this, like I said, is very much a game about grinding, and if that is something that really appeals to you, I think it's worth looking into this game, because compared to the first game, like the quality of life in this game is just like huge. I think like the biggest one to me is that in the previous game you had to talk to somebody to change your job, even if you had it available, but now your job changes dynamically. So if you go, to cut down a tree, you'll switch to your woodcutter job. And then if you immediately go to a mining node, you'll immediately switch to the miner job or life. And I don't know, just that quality of life itself was enough for me to kind of like really honestly lose a lot of time in this game.
Matt,
Mm-hmm.
since again, this is a game that is essentially bringing up the mantle of a, would you say, cult classic game from the DS era?
Mm-hmm.
As someone who was a fan of the original, Matt, does it scratch the itch that you've had since you've last played the original?
Yeah, honestly, this is scratching the exact same itch. Like, if you really want to kind of go around and just, dig around, hit some nodes, and have some, furniture friends cheering for you, saying you did a good job, then yeah, this is definitely the way to go. And
Okay.
if you want to do the combat, there is actually I can't believe I actually like totally skipped over this. There is a whole kind of roguelike system in this game,
Oh,
which
speak
I
my
think is
language,
kind of,
Matt.
which is like kind of interesting in the way that they did it, because this does follow the kind of standard roguelike system of node-based levels. And the kind of interesting thing about the node-based levels is that each node-based level has a, I guess, specific job or a life specific like to that node, where you'd expect in a standard roguelike, hey, go into this area, kill all the dudes, and then proceed to the next one. Where in this one they change it up a little, where it's like, oh, if it is a combat-based node, it is go in and kill all these dudes. But if it's a gathering node, it's like, oh, you have to be able to, chop down this specific tree, or fish this like specific fish, or if it's crafting, you like make a certain you're able to make a certain item. And I think that it really lends itself pretty nicely to how the game like allows you to play it.
Okay. So Matt,
Mm-hmm.
this was Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time.
Mm-hmm.
Available now.
Yes.
Worth the wait, Matt?
Worth the wait. There is a whole multiplayer component in this that I haven't experienced because I don't like interacting with people. But
Big fair.
Mm-hmm.
Big fair. But available now. And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, I'm not sure if you went into it, but last question for you. I believe in Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, there are, correct me if I'm wrong, 14 unique jobs, correct? Or
Yes, there are.
more? Matt, since I usually ask you what's the meta, Matt, what's the meta job? What's the best job? What's the most unique job here in Fantasy Life?
Honestly, once you kind of break down what they're doing, the jobs themselves are very similar to ones that are in the same category. I think as far as uniqueness goes, from what I've been playing so far, I think the Magician kind of just having a lot of magic to play with adds to the uniqueness there in terms of the combat classes. As far as the crafting goes, I kind of go towards the Alchemist or the Artist, because they are making the consumable items and the decorations for your like city building area. And then as far as gathering goes, the angler, I am bad at the fishing in this game, but the fishing in this game is kind of unique from all the other modes, kind of just because of its interface, because it is one that is, stylistically different from all the other gathering classes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. As Matt said, maybe check it out on a platform that will let you play handheld and maybe grind some out before bed. But available now. Now this is a big boy game price.
Yeah, this is a big boy game price. That is is very, very steep for for what it is, I think.
Okay, but if you're enjoying it, that's time well spent for you. But boys, we're running on a beefy boy episode. But real quick, Matt, Akuma in Monster Hunter.
No. It had potential.
Okay.
I don't like how it controls, man. No, that's really rough. I heard it's better on the controller, and I did give that a little bit of a try, but even then, it didn't. I think to me, not feel particularly great, but I am more native to mouse and keyboard, so.
Fair. Yeah, this made me realize, wow, boys, is it less that I like Monster Hunter and more I just like the lance? Because if I don't have a big shield and a pokey stick, this might not be. I might go back to my stance of this is not a game for me.
Honestly,
but
I like the concept of how Akuma plays, but the execution of it, I think, is just very poor. Because you have to use an item, and that puts you into like a state where you can use Akuma moves, but it doesn't lock you in that state. Like I think if it was like a toggle instead of a basically a trigger, it would be a lot better.
Yeah, I just didn't think it controlled great, and which makes it frustrating because even if it is just the intro arena quest for it, like I'm scratching. I like to think I would have got my A rank if this controlled a bit better, but I can't be bothered. I crafted his gear and whatever, and back to playing some other games. But boys, you know what is a game for me?
What's that?
It's our weekly Don't Match Me challenge, where every week,
what a transition,
towards the end of the episode, one of us will bring forth 5 questions, and all you have to do, our friends out there, is come up with an answer that doesn't match our answers. Of course, if you want to play on story mode, all you have to do is not match my answers. But if you want to play on challenge mode with the big boy parries and the dodge counters, try not to match Matt and Rakush as well. But since I'm bringing the Don't Match Me challenge this week, I thought that I would do something fast and loose. And Matt, thankfully, you brought forth again, Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. And for our friends out there, don't worry, this might, even though this has been inspired by Fantasy Life, not necessarily about the game, but nevertheless, if I tell you a question that you might be unsure about, you know what? Feel free to pause the game, pause the game and pause our episode, look up an answer and unpause as well, because this is our audio diary. But boys, Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. When I look at this title, the first word that pops out to me is fantasy. And Matt, Rakush, you know what else is another fantasy RPG? Of course.
Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy. Question 1.
Ooh.
Name any mainline Final Fantasy game.
Ooh.
Name any
All right, I'm good.
mainline Final Fantasy game. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Friends, if you said Final Fantasy, as in Final Fantasy 1, you're out.
Ooh. Jaren, I'm surprised you didn't pick Final Fantasy. Okay, Jaren, actually, do you consider Final Fantasy X-2 a mainline Final Fantasy game?
I, of course, consider Final Fantasy X-2 a mainline game, but for the purists out there who, maybe some people may not, they'll be wrong side of history, but I digress. Rakush?
I do like that this is basically just pick a number between 1 and 16.
Oh, God.
I'm going to Final Fantasy 16.
of course.
I forgot it went that high. Also, I wasn't picking Final Fantasy X too. I was picking Final Fantasy VIII. I was just calling out Jared.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Question 2. The next word that sticks out to me in the game's title is life. And boys, we're spinning that wheel. We're spinning that. I don't even know what's on the game board of the game of life. But speaking about how Fantasy Life has 14 unique jobs, let's take this a bit easier. Name any career or job that you can get in the Hasbro Game of Life. So when you think of the Game of Life, name any career or job that you can have in the Game of Life. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Had to go safe, and I went with doctor.
Ooh.
If you pick doctor, you're out. Matt, what did you pick?
I gotta lay it on the lock here. I picked the police officer.
Okay. Rakush?
I'm gonna go with what my career is here in writer and media, but I'm gonna go with copywriter, which is not what my career is.
Okay. Okay.
I was looking at the jobs, and it makes sense to me that if you roll a 10, you're considered speeding, so the police officer collects money from you. But on the other end of that, if you roll a 1, the artist collects money from you, and I feel like, I don't know, the slight commentary there is a little weird.
Oh man. But that's the Game of Life. Isn't life just a little bit weird and sad and depressing and expensive? But moving on.
I was waiting for you to go to Life is Strange from there.
Maybe we'll talk about that game next week. We won't talk about that game next week. But you know what we'll talk about right now? The letter I. Because boys, Fantasy Life I. Matt, forgot to ask you, why is there an I in the title?
I am not sure yet.
Okay.
Is it because it's some weeby thing where I in Japanese translates to love?
Maybe. It would have made a lot more sense if there was 2 of them, but I don't know.
But
are you sure it's not just one?
Fantasy Life.
As in the Roman numerical one?
I mean, but that doesn't make sense because this isn't the first game. Unless they're
But is it a prequel?
It doesn't seem like it's a prequel. Maybe it's a prequel.
Interesting.
I don't know. Maybe I just haven't pushed far enough in the story, but it doesn't seem like it is a prequel. I think it might be.
Or maybe you
universe.
have and you just didn't catch the story.
This is like one of those games where it reuses NPCs. While we're on the Final Fantasy kick, it's very Sid, but all the characters are Sid.
Fair. But when I personally think of the letter I in games, I think of I Spy. And boys, I spy with my eye something that's green. So let's do a quick layup. Name something that is green. Name something that is green. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boys, I went with my green Joy-Con.
Ooh.
Because I spy with my little eye something that's green on my desk, which is that Joy-Con. Matt, what did you pick for our layup?
I mean, I tried to be a little bit more general here to possibly get caught, but I went with a figure, an anime figure.
Okay.
Specifically, I'm going with a Zaku from the Gundam series, but I wanted to be a bit more general.
Fair. Rakush, what are you spying? That's the green.
St. Patrick's Day.
Nice.
The concept of St. Patrick's Day.
Good answer.
Just St. Patrick's Day in general.
Good answer.
The logo, the club.
All
Hey,
right.
listen, I could have just gone and said something a little bit broader, like the Irish, but I didn't.
Okay.
All right.
You picked the most ethereal. You picked an ethereal concept as green, which I get it. It makes sense. It makes
do
sense.
you not know what St. Patrick's Day is?
No. I get it. It makes sense, but you picked a concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Am I wrong? Is this a wrong answer? Do I need to go with something else?
I understand why you picked it. It was just the wildest, to me, the wildest pick.
We'll go over this
St.
during your
Patrick's Day.
performance review, Rakush. But Question
This is the
4.
guy who answered with a Zaku.
I mean, I went with like a figure or a model, which I think is gonna get hittable. You went with
Okay,
critical
fine.
concept.
I got another one. 1/3 of the flag of Ireland.
I don't know what the flag of Ireland looks like actually.
1/3 of it is green,
What's the other 2/3?
orange, and white.
Thanks, Rakush.
Mm-hmm.
What up,
Question
Dan?
4. So now let's get into the subtitles, friends. Steals. We have a girl who steals time, but can you name a game where you can steal? So possibly another layup, but name any game where you can steal.
Mm-hmm.
And to clarify, this could be, you using a theft skill, committing a robbery, committing a heist, but anywhere you can steal. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, if you said Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, you're out.
Oh man.
Oh, you actually specified which Grand Theft Auto. Interesting.
I stole that breaking and entering minigame mechanic thing. I stole hella TVs during my time in San Andreas.
Oh man.
Matt,
Mm-hmm.
which game are you stealing in?
I mean, I'm going back to one of my last week answers. I'm going with Payday 2.
Classic. The classic.
Mhm.
And Rakush, what are you stealing in?
Gotta go with Red Dead 2, right?
Of course. Rakush, what was the last
bunch
thing
of
you
things to steal
stole
in
in
that
Red
game.
Dead 2?
Last mission I did was actually a home robbery. So yeah.
Damn, that's rough.
Okay. And boys, the final word in Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time, it's time itself. Where, boys, I may still be spending a lot of time in blueprints. And one of the, a piece of a puzzle revolves around clocks. So let's bring it back. Name on a 12-hour face clock. Name any hour. Just name any hour on a 12-face clock. Start 1 from 15, but let's go 1 to 12 for the final question this week.
Okay, so we can't do the hours 13 to 24.
Nope. The face says 1 to 12. So just pick any hour from 1 to 12 on a, let's say, standard 12-hour clock.
Mm-hmm.
So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, was gonna make this a bit more difficult, but that might be spoilers. So if you know, I went with the number 5.
Ooh.
Matt?
Damn.
Oh. You get out, Rakush?
I lost.
Oh, damn. I mean, I went with, when I draw a clock, I feel like the default time I draw on that clock is 3 o'clock.
Ooh. Actually, that's Rakush, when you think of a 12-hour clock, what time comes to mind?
See, I think 5 because it's happy hour. And that's why I lost.
Man, when I think of a clock, I think about 9 o'clock for some reason. I think 9 o'clock's my answer. But my answer for this Don't Match Me challenge is 5 o'clock. But if I think of a clock, I think of 9 o'clock.
It's nice and symmetrical. Or angled. Nice angled. 90-degree angle. Sorry, that's what I tried to say. Symmetrical is the wrong choice of words.
Weirdly enough, if I think of a 12-hour clock, 6 o'clock, I think that weirds me out.
Yeah.
If you're set dressing and you have 6 o'clock, I think something's off. It has to, I feel like it has to, the hour, it can't just be a straight line. It has to be pointing on the dot to an actual number.
To be honest, anything that is just like 00 on minutes is weird if you're doing set dressing. Like, you gotta have it as a random number, like 6:17 p.m.
Nope. It's always going to be 9 o'clock here. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think like 6 o'clock, like 12 o'clock, 12:30 are all really weird times to see a clock in anything.
Yeah. Fair. But boys, maybe I should have played some Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. Hashtag not sponsored, hashtag not an ad. But I did have time to record a Beefy Boy episode with some of my best friends in the whole wide world, which I want to thank once again this week Matt Alba for joining me, and of course, editing this podcast.
Yo, thanks, man. Of course, I want to thank you, as always, for hosting this show and bringing us the Don't Match Me for this week.
No probs, Bob. I also want to thank one of my best friends, Rakush, for joining me this week. And let's face it, kind of having a existential crash out while playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I appreciate it. Rakush, I appreciate
I've been having an existential crash out for the last decade, Jaren.
Fair enough. But boys, I don't want to thank Pokemon cards. I don't want to thank Destined Rivals. I do want to thank me being a Nintendo-year-old, because hopefully I might continue to make some poor financial decisions and talk about Switch 2 next week. But if not, pretty sure there's some Summer Games Fest news. We'll get to go through some, I guess, summer season fast approaching. Maybe we'll do a check-in of what we're feeling and what we're not once again. But until then, Matt, please take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of new moments in our old age.
Hey, that's a new one.